Tina Cooks is made possible through the generous support of G's Hot Dog Cafe, home of the Chicago Dog. Papa John's Pizza, Leominster, Fitchburg, Marlboro, Worcester. KC's Body Connection Massage Center, connecting body, mind, and spirit. Boucher Construction, Central Mass Sand and Gravel. Here's a classic pot roast recipe with side dishes of sweet potatoes and polenta for a nice Italian twist. To get started on our pot roast, we're going to start by getting some vegetables ready. Because ordinarily, I usually just take my vegetables, saute them a little bit, braise up my pot roast, and throw it in the oven. You can also do this in a crock pot, which works out really good. I've done it in a crock pot. So if you work and you want to come home to a meal like this, crock pot's the way to go. So we're just going to chop some onions. They don't have to be pretty or fancy. Just chop a half an onion. Chop some garlic. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel some carrots, okay? And I'm going to dice one carrot really small, and the other ones I'm going to leave in big chunks because I want to let them roast with the pot roast. They'll be delicious on the side after. Now, if you're not a fan of carrots, you can use turnips. Turnips are really good. They add a little bit of a different flavor, but they're excellent with a nice Yankee pot roast. Some nice celery. These are like aromatic vegetables. Keep your fingers tucked in. You don't want any finger meat in there. Okay. Now I am going to mince one carrot to give this some flavor, so that they just cook better with when you brown them off with the meat. They taste fabulous. I'm going to put a little more carrot than that. That's not quite enough for me. Okay, so we have onions, we have celery, we have garlic, and we have carrots. Oops, that one's trying to get away. Now I'm just going to grab a little bit of oil now that my vegetables are cut, okay? And they do look good, okay? I'm going to take this meat, and I'll put it over here, and I'm going to grab some olive oil. And I'm going to rub it down with some olive oil, okay? So that it just gives it a nicer flavor. And I'm going to season it up when we get to the stove. Okay, so we're going to cut to the stove, and I'm going to show you how to get this pot roast going. All right, now we're going to start out by braising our pot roast, okay? We're going to start out with our vegetables because they have to cook a little bit to give it some flavor, okay? Now, when you do a pot roast like this, all right, we want to get our vegetables going. We want to get them cooking up a little bit. You're going to salt them. You're going to use some parsley. And we're going to use some pepper. Okay? Now when you do And when you cook this in a crock pot, you're gonna do the same type of thing. You're gonna cook your vegetables, you're gonna brown your meat. Okay, we're gonna put this up a little bit. I'm gonna take my meat and I'm gonna put it right in the middle. And I'm gonna start searing it off a little bit. I'm also going to season my meat. Now, when you cook in a crock pot, you need a lot more flavor because it simmers for such a long time. So you wanna make sure you season in layers also. Just a little bit of salt, some pepper, some granulated garlic. Now we rubbed our beef with a little bit of oil to give it a little bit of, a nice oil, a nice flavor. All right, we're gonna let this go. Now you wanna brown both sides. Then we're gonna deglaze it with some red wine. Okay. So we're gonna let this brown up. Takes a few minutes to brown up. If you're using a crock pot, you wanna make sure your meat is nice and brown also, because that's how you're gonna get the flavor into the pot roast as it cooks all day long. We're gonna check the bottom of this because it's really going at a good pace. That's good, that's a nice brown. We're gonna brown this other side. We're going to toss our vegetables around in here, saute them around a little bit. Oh yeah, this is going to be good. These vegetables are also going to help when you do your gravy, when you do your sauce afterwards, okay? Because you want to have a nice, doesn't have to be a heavy gravy, but you want a nice sauce. See how we're getting some nice brown bits. When you see those nice brown bits, just scrape them off. Put your meat back in there. These handles are getting a little hot. When you use a roasting pan or a braising pan like this, make sure you have an oven mitt or a Mapina. There, you need them. I had cooking classes this summer. And I kept telling the kids, the first rule of kitchen safety is you got to be careful around the stove. You don't want to burn yourself. So what do? I go in with a huge burn on my arm. I said to the kids, that's what happens when you're not paying attention in the kitchen. You have battle scars. Well, anyways, they got to learn. We had no incidences in the classroom, thank God. No burns, no cuts. I wouldn't trust them with my knives. No way. All right, we're going to turn this over again. All right, see how this side looks. Yeah, we're going to let it go. There we go. Okay, so we're going to bump this up real high. We're going to deglaze this with a little bit of red wine. Now, the wine is optional. You don't have to have red wine in your pot roast if you don't want it. I like it. It adds a little bit of flavor. Not a lot, about a half a cup or so. You don't need a lot. All righty. So this is it. Now I'm going to cover this with tin foil, all covered up, nice. And we're going to stick it in a 350-degree oven. It's got to go at least 2.5 hours. Now when you do this in a crock pot, which is also a very good idea, you can do the same. You're going to do it just like this right up to this point. Now if you want a little bit of a gravy, take your roast beef out, put it in your crock pot, thicken this up a little bit with a slurry, and then put it over the beef. Then stick your vegetables in around the side of it. Cover it up and let it roast on low all day. When you come home, it's going to be wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, so let's get this covered. My wine is pretty much, see, it evaporates out, which is what you want. See? All right, let's cover this up and bake it. I am going to get some tools for this, though, because this pan is going to be very hot. There's no way I'm touching it. No way. Okay. Just going to pull it right through the little arms here. Okay. Make sure that's nice and tight. You want it nice and tight. It's got to be tight so that it steams and cooks nice and... It'll be so tender and so delicious. It really will. This is a tougher cut of meat. You don't want a real good piece of meat for this. You want a chuck or a nice tough, pot roast. They usually have them marked down at the meat market. You asked him, the meat market guy, what you use. He'll tell you what's best, what he's got that's nice and fresh. Because more than the kind, you want it nice and fresh. You don't want something that's not fresh. All right, so now that this is all wrapped up, we're gonna stick it in a 350-degree oven, and I'll see it in 2.5 hours. I was so busy worried about getting the beef done, I forgot about the carrots. So guess what? We gotta add these carrots in. Just gonna grab my knife, and I'm gonna cut them really big. I'm gonna cut these carrots in like 3 pieces each, okay? Because they're gonna roast in here. And I'm just gonna throw them in like this. I'm not gonna unwrap this all the way. It's just too much work to wrap it up. Close it up. Now, like I said, you can use turnips. You can use squash, butternut squash, not frozen. You wanna use fresh. If you're gonna be working in a crock pot, you wanna use fresh. Frozen mushes up too much. Okay, so now, we're gonna put this in the oven, and we'll be back in 2.5 hours. For real this time. The first side for our pot roast is gonna be white sweet potatoes and a yam, or a sweet potato. Usually we serve mashed potatoes or a baked potato. I wanna switch it up. I never used to like sweet potatoes, but I'll tell you, when you do them this way, they are delicious. I'm gonna peel these babies up. And yes, this is a white sweet potato. Delicious, delicious. If you want, you can mix regular potatoes in with that. This will work out good too. Because I have done, you know, sweet potatoes, just a regular orange yam with white potatoes. It's very good. Nice flavor. Okie dokie, smoke it. I'm gonna cut this little end off because I don't like him. Okay, and we'll just, I don't like any brown on my potatoes. I have a problem with it. Okay, here's another little speck we're gonna get rid of. Okay, so I'm gonna cut these in half. If I can get my knife through it. Okay, and then I'm gonna cut this one in half, like so. Alrighty, and I'm just gonna slice them up. You know, about a 1/2 inch or so. You want to roast them. They're going to take a good half an hour, 40 minutes. I'm going to take my pan, spray a little Pam in the bottom so that they don't stick, my usual thing. Slide those in. And I'm going to have a little bit of onion in there because the onion is going to roast with the sweet potatoes and make them just so good. Oh, love it, love it, love it. For someone who used to hate sweet potatoes, I like them now. Okay, and we're gonna just cut like rings. Not real thin, because you don't want them to burn when the potatoes are cooking. Okay, let me see. Oops, they flew out. Alrighty, I'm gonna move this chopping block out of the way. Clean off my knife here. Move this out of the way a little bit. Boy, I'm just into making messes today. Boy, is that onion strong. Ow! All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna break everything up and mix it around a little bit. Make sure everything's nice and loose. And then I'm gonna take some nice olive oil and I'm gonna sprinkle it on the top. Probably a good couple tablespoons, because you wanna coat everything. Oh, my eyes are burning from that onion. Now, people always ask me why I keep closing up my canisters after I'm done. Because if I told you how many boxes of salt I've lost to the floor because I don't close them up, I'm always like knocking stuff over. So after I'm done using them, I definitely reclose them because I've lost more than one container of parsley and more than one container of salt to the floor. I'm gonna put some nice fresh crushed pepper on there. I like to put a little bit more crushed pepper on these just because I like them a little hot. I forgot my granulated garlic, but it's right over here, thank God, in my little garage. Love those garages. Put some nice granulated garlic on there. Don't be afraid to sprinkle it on. And then we're gonna mix them all up. And they're gonna just brown and get all nice and sweet and delicious. You can do this with carrots. You can do this with butternut squash, yams, what are they, turnips, parsnips, whatever you like, any kind of a vegetable that's a ground vegetable like carrots or, these I call these ground vegetables because they're mostly in the ground. Okay, we're gonna stick this in about a 350, 375 oven. I don't convection bake. I was asked a question a while back, and they asked me if I convection bake my meat. No, I do not. When I convection bake, it's mostly for baking because convection heat is a very hot, dry heat. I don't roast my beef on a convection oven. I use a regular bake oven, just a regular baking. Convection I like for baking as in pastries. But if you're roasting or you're baking something off like that, I use a regular bake. I don't use a convection oven. All right, so we're gonna pop these in the little side oven because we still have our pot roast in the other oven. And we're gonna let those go about a good 25, 30 minutes. Okay. So my pot holders are not the prettiest, but that's okay. We're gonna check this beef. All right, I'm literally gonna pull it out of the oven because I wanna see how much juice we have in here for our gravy, because I want to have a nice gravy. Oh, see how nice this is coming? Oh, this is coming out beautiful. I don't need too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 cups of water, and I'm going to use my beef paste here. I'm going to make a beef broth real quick. Just going to dissolve this in a little bit because it's going to dissolve in here. And this is going to give me a nice beef broth. You can buy a can of low sodium beef stock if you like, works just as good. And we're gonna pour this around like this, okay? Make sure I get all my beef in there. All right, now just be very careful because this pan is extremely hot. I don't want anybody to burn themselves like I do all the time. And then we're gonna cover this back up just like this. I should have my gloves on, but that's okay, you know me. A little frying up doesn't bother me. Okay. And this is gonna go this way. You wanna make sure this is nice and airtight again because you want the juices to stay in there. You don't want them all coming out. And Kyle was making fun of my oven mitts, but that's okay. I don't have to be the most beautiful oven mitts, but hey, at least I have some. Okay, we're gonna pop this back in the oven. Potatoes are roasting. Next thing I'm going to set up for is our polenta, which ordinarily you should use a nice white polenta, but I have corn, so we're going to use the corn polenta. Okay, our second side dish is going to be polenta, okay? Now, I did polenta before, but just in case you don't know, I've got water, boiling water, salt, and a little bit of butter. Now, I don't want to make a lot of polenta because I also have the side of potatoes. So I'm just gonna slowly put this in and whisk and let it thicken up a little bit because this is boiling really quickly. Now I have about maybe 2 cups, 2.5 cups of water here. So probably about a half to 3/4 of a cup of polenta might be too much. So I'd say about a half. Okay, there we go. Now we're gonna let this simmer up because I don't want this as thick as I normally make it. I want it a little bit on the thinner side, so that's kind of more like a mashed potato rather than a thick, heavy polenta. Let this come to a boil a little bit. I'm gonna put a little more in here because I don't think that's quite enough. There we go, that's gonna be plenty. Now you gotta whisk this all the time so that you get the lumps out of it. Now as it starts to boil, boil, boil like this, you wanna bring the heat down because this stuff is like lava. It's like lava, it'll burn you. Okay, now I want it a little on the thinner side like that. Now naturally I'm gonna put in some Romano cheese because I like cheese in my polenta. You can use an Asiago cheese or a cheddar cheese. Usually, ordinarily, I would use a white polenta, but I have the corn, so I'm going to use the corn. It's going to be just as good with the gravy. If you want, you can add a spice in here, parsley or something for color. I'm just going to leave it just like this. Ordinarily, I wouldn't put pepper in it. I wouldn't grind pepper. We would leave the gravy up to that to leave the flavor. Okay, so I'm going to move this over on a low heat to keep it warm. I'm going to shut this off for the time being, and we're going to take out our, where's my other towel? Oh well, I lost it. We're going to take out our beef, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to take the cover off. And it's beautiful. Look at that. Watch out because it's steamy and it's hot. Now you notice that meat shrinks down quite a bit. So you have to, it's about half of what it was. I'm going to take this out. And I'm going to take out our beautiful, beautiful carrots. You can see that they're not too overdone. I'm going to move them over here like this. Oops, I dropped one on the floor, but what else is new? If my floor didn't eat, it would feel left out. I do have a spoon here. I don't know why I'm struggling. I have more spoons than I know what to do with. Okay, I'm just gonna finish taking I don't want these carrots mashed up with the juice, with the gravy. Okay, so now, the next thing I'm gonna do is I am going to get my whisk from the polenta. Actually, no, I think I'll leave that in there so that I can use it there. I'm gonna take this and I'm just gonna crush these down just a little bit. And we're going to bring this up to a simmer. Now don't forget, this has got red wine in it. It's got a lot of seasoning in it. It's got the beef stock in it. It's going to be very, very, very flavorful. Now the reason why I'm crushing these is because I want them to mash up a little bit. And then we're going to strain it after I thicken it up. See, I'm trying to get all the brown off because that's flavoring. Now right here I have a little bit of flour and water. This is going to be a slurry, which is what I'm going to use to thicken this up with. Okay, I need a little more flour than that because I like to thicken my gravy, taste it, and then I'll strain it before we serve it because I want to have all this flavor in here. Okay. Okay. I'm going to drop that in there. Just like that. It's got to come to a really hard boil to get this in there. Too far. Now I don't want this thick. I don't, because I want it to be able to be on the polenta. So that's why I made the slurry a little tiny bit thin. Now this is going to be perfect, I think, just the way it is. And as you're sifting it, the vegetables will break down and go through. And the last thing I'm going to pour in here is some Gravy Master. It's got a little bit of a kick to it, but it makes sure it enriches your gravies. It's got a little seasoning and stuff in it that helps the sauce get a little better, or gravy. And there we go. We're going to let this simmer a few minutes so that the flour will simmer out. But we're ready to go. Oh yeah. Check it for seasonings. Make sure you get enough salt and pepper and stuff in there. And that's good, just the way it is. Okay, so we're gonna I wanna check my potatoes here too and see how those are coming because they should be just about done. Okay, oh yeah, see, look. Wonderful, wonderful. Check them. Oh yeah, see how nice and soft they are? All right, now what we're gonna do now is we're gonna strain out this gravy, okay, and get it going. Beautiful. then I'm going to whisk this through. And as you can see, the vegetables are all pureeing up nice. You're going to get a little bit of the carrot, a little bit of the celery, a little bit of the onion, a little bit of the garlic all going through into the sauce. And underneath you're going to have all this nice, that also helps with the flavoring. And there's our gravy, our sauce. Okay, so now that we have the beef, the carrots, the polenta, the potatoes, and the sauce, we're ready to plate up. See you at the counter. We're going to plate up our pot roast supper. We're going to put our carrots there. We're going to take our potatoes, and we're going to put our potatoes over here on the side. Okay. We're going to cut up our pot roast on an angle. If it shreds, you're going the wrong way. So come down on an angle, cut it nice and thin so that it's nice and tender. Okay, and we're just going to keep cutting like this. Oh yeah, so you can see that it's nice and tender. It's just about ready to fall apart. Sometimes when we used to make this at King's Corner, I used to work with Peter Kapitas, nice little Greek old guy. He was a great cook. I learned a lot of secrets from Peter. He used to season it with a little bit of cloves. If I would have had them, I would have seasoned it with cloves, but for some reason the supermarket's been out of it for 2 weeks. All right, we're going to take the rest of this meat, and we're going to put this over here. And then last but not least, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get our polenta, and I'm going to naturally try to bang it out of the whisk now, which I won't get it all. And then we're going to take this, and we're going to put it right in the center here, like this. Okay. Like so. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my, drop my fork, okay? And I'm just going to put a little bit of sauce on the top of the polenta, give it a little bit of flavor there. Put some sauce on the meat, but I'm going to take the rest of the sauce and I'm going to put it on the side. Now we're going to bring this to the table. We have all our stuff to guests here. Okay. You like sweet potatoes?
Yeah.
Okay, good. This is our pot roast, polenta, sweet potato, and carrot show. Thank you for watching Tina Cooks. Have a good night. All right, who's Mrs. Mom? What do you want? Want a little polenta? Oops. I dropped this polenta on his meat. That's okay. Good. They're roasted. I roasted them a little bit of oil and garlic and stuff. They are good. Yep, that's how Johnny used to do it. We used to do them like that at King's Corner all the time. That's good. Oh, how was the fun? The polenta tastes really good with the pot roast. It's just as good as gravy. It's actually better than mashed potatoes. Although Andy might not think so. But that's all right. We're going to make it Italian out of the